We talked to Mr. Sam Latham of the Urban Journal, excuse me, and Onyx magazine. Excuse me. And of course, let's see if we can pick up where we left off last time.
Okay.
Dealing with this issue of deregulation and the impact that deregulation has had upon affirmative action, which has led us to, I think, agree that there is now no affirmative action. Is that what?
No affirmative action and no set-asides anymore. So the programs that was beginning to help us level the field sort of reversed on us before the field was leveled. So again, I referred earlier to Reconstruction period when African Americans started getting parity with the general market, and it came to an end. So has the modern era for affirmative action. It's come to an end, and I don't know whether it can ever be revived again with the current, I guess, climate environment for political and social discourse. I think it would be very difficult to get reestablished.
Well, in other words, there for not only for African American businesses, but all those other businesses that had that were impacted by affirmative action, females, for example, and others that were impacted by, they are also cut out and left out in the cold. Is that what we're saying?
They're cut out, but they're still represented in a greater quantity than what African Americans are. They're still, I mean, it's not even close. And especially for startups, it's almost impossible to match what's been done by females. Now, Asian Americans, because there aren't as many, but if you look at the percentage increase, they're well represented as a percentage of the marketplace.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, well, now, it seems to me that there ought to be some kind of thought in terms of how do we do, you know, reverse this kind of, because if it, at one time, and as you indicated, during the Reconstruction period, there was a turn down in terms of the aspirations of Africans, but nevertheless, it came back again.
Yes.
And so now it seems...
Well, we had to, I think it came back, Dr. Haney, because of dynamic leadership. If you look at the work of Dr. King and others, even unsung, that contributed in a lot of different ways. So there's nothing on the horizon to point to that happening again. And I think the media controls that as well. That's why I've worked so hard to stay in this field. It's because Jesse Jackson would never get on television like he once was. If King lived in this era, King's, I guess the work that he's doing, or he had done, would never be exposed to the public because they found out they can control the message.
The message,
Yes, if you're not on television, if they don't see people being attacked by the dogs and the fire hoses, then nobody knows about it.
Out of sight, out of mind. Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Yes.
And that seems to be a very, very dismal kind of prospect, looking toward the future. What about education? Can we do anything? Can anything be done in reference to it?
Well, to use an old Jesse Jackson phrase, instead of turning on each other, we turn to each other.
Okay.
Now, we have the means.
Okay.
That's what's a little disappointing to me. If you look at 192,000 people living in the Nashville SMA, Statistical Marketing Area, 8-county area, you're talking about $3.7 billion and 192,000 people. Dr. Haney, that's enough. That would provide all the commerce we needed.
Just in that area?
Oh, tremendous. I mean, if you look at Meharry, why can't there be a surgical supply company doing a couple of $1 million just doing business with Meharry? Okay, so if we look at the services needed and that we would sort of rely on a natural market, if we say African American natural market, and we're not talking about racism, we're talking about racial pride, then we could solve our own problems if we have control of our own financial institutions.
But you know, the things that you articulated now are not generally heard. And I guess you might say that that is because we don't control the methods of publication other than your newspaper. And of course, you're doing a lot. But if you are in a situation where you are the only voice, and there are not that many voices outside of the Urban Journal.
Yeah, and I think that we can forget about the days when there was one local centralized leadership base. It has to be dispersed now. You're a leader, I'm a leader, hundreds of others, thousands, people who are educated, people who are well-read, who are analytical. All of us have to really take up the mantle to solve this problem. It's getting worse every year.
Okay.
If you look around the community, you know, who owns the businesses? They're located right here in our own community now. We don't own the corner grocery stores anymore. Barbershops we still have control of right now. But other than barber and beauty shops, not even the beauty and barber suppliers are black. Say years ago when you had Triangle Chemical, this man had a $2 million business. They developed in the 50s selling barber and beauty supplies. But after Mr. Holliday died in the early 70s, it just went straight downhill. It's no longer open. So all those strong institutions that we've had, and they're still sliding, is what puzzles me and worries me the most, is that it hasn't just leveled off.
And still a problem that we have to deal with.
Yes.
And the that's what's so intriguing about this. The resources that we have to work with are not there, but the market is there. And so what we have to do is to try to tap that market. And how do you convince folks of that? I mean, you've been involved in newspapers and magazines and whatever.
Well, you know, I've taken some marketing classes where you try to follow the decision paths that people make, even when they're exposed to advertising and so forth. The laws of sublimation are strong, but there has to be a repeated message that's constant before there's any changes. You know, if you look at history, you look at any significant change, it starts with rhetoric. A lot of people talking.
Okay.
Then they get angry. They get fed up. And I voted for President Reagan in 1980 because I was hoping there would be a sort of a revolt. That, you know.
It's a negative kind of thing.
But we have to reach that level where we just decide we're not going to take it anymore. And, you know, when you look at what happened in Texas, where the African-American was dragged behind a truck to his death, look at what happened in California, New York, the man shot 41 times, and there's no outrage. So I read in a magazine once that said, I can't remember who said it, but he said, we're too easy. We need to really become concerned, get mad, not to the point of a riot.
Rioting, but, you know, as one of my professors used to say a long time ago, don't get angry, get smart.
There you go.
See, and I think that's one of the issues.
And so I think more of us need to wake up and, you know, realize that when Tennessee State loses 1,300 students, when they're already experienced flat enrollment, that we're all in trouble. When Meharry goes from 1,800 employees to under 800, we're all in trouble because those are places that paid more money to African Americans, doctors and so forth. So we're spending, still spending thousands of dollars a day. And based on our population, there are about 800 African Americans hospitalized somewhere every day. So why couldn't Meharry get at least 150? That's all they needed to survive.
But now the merger with Meharry in general really has not served Meharry well at all.
Well, that's a misnomer. It really wasn't a merger. It was Meharry's a landlord.
Okay.
They have no control whatsoever over General Hospital now. They get rent.
Okay. And so for all practical purposes, the influence that it once had is no longer available.
Not at all.
And you can sort of spread that all across the institutions within the African American community. Is that what we're saying? And that's what you have to fight against. In other words, that's what you have to explain in a real sense.
Well, I think what we fought for originally, we talked about political, economic, and social advances. We have the social advances, but without the political and economic, it doesn't mean a whole lot.
And so that's what we have to work on now.
That's what we have to work on.
And one of the things, as we end this show for today over the last 41 seconds, one of the things that we have to do is to get Africans back into the voting booths and to
that's one area that we've begun to make some advances. You look at what Harold Ford Jr. was able to do, what Howard Gentry was able to do. and now Barack Obama gives tremendous hope.
All of those are good signs
Yes.
for the future, and if we can only build upon those and work with those,
yes.
you think we might be
That would be one of the three-legged stools
that we couldn't get. Okay, and of course, Mr. Latham, let me thank you for bringing that excellent information by
Thank you, Dr.
today.
Haney, always.
And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.